again, everybody, and welcome to the Credit Bank Small Business Spotlight, where we put the spotlight on inspiring and awesome business owners. We learn their stories, and they share what drives their success. This episode is sponsored by Credit Bank, where you can get up to $500,000 in working capital with monthly payments in less time than it takes to drive to the bank. I'm your host, Irv Cruz, and today I am joined by the wonderful Francie Jain. She is the founder of Terawatt. Francie, thank you for joining us today. We want to hear your story.
Well, goodness, thank you, Irv. It is a pleasure, and I'm so happy to be here and chat with you and solve all the world's problems.
Okay. Well, we'll try to do that together. Not sure how successful we're going to be with all the world's problems, but we're going to take a stab at it. How about that? So, Francie, I always like to, when I have someone on the show, I like them to take us back to the beginning of their journey. Why did you start Terawatt?
Okay. So I'm going to try to be really succinct because this could be a long story, but you know how people say about their children, you're just a twinkle in my eye, when they'll ask you a question about themselves and it was like about them before they existed. So the twinkle in my eye for Terawatt was actually 2016 during a presidential debate with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And there's a fracas over manufacturing workers and who is doing the most to help manufacturing workers who lost their jobs. And I don't remember how it got started, but there's something, I think they were sort of saying who had done more. And then they were saying that millions of manufacturing workers had lost their jobs since 2000. And I thought, well, that's a lot of people. Is that true? And so I started just researching that fact. And it is true. Many things have changed in the manufacturing world over the past, well, at this point now, 25 years, but, 15 years. And somewhere between 5 million and 15 million people have lost manufacturing jobs. Like those jobs just don't exist anymore. And It may be more now, but there's also some discussion now about maybe manufacturing jobs coming back, but I won't get into that. But the point is, I thought, wow, here we are in America where there's always a boom and a bust, it's capitalism and like we're comfortable with like the change that brings. And so I thought, well, who's helping these millions of people, reset and get another career or figure out the next thing? And usually when I have this question, I'll do a Google search and like, there'll be like 30,000 websites talking about it. And I kept not being able to find what I was looking for, which is just like I was calling it the Yahoo of career change, like the inexpensive place where you go that helps you, and it's advertising based company, and because of that, it's free for users or super low cost. And so I kept looking, and I was thinking, oh, I don't know the right search terms. Like this is I can't find this thing. And then finally, I was like, I don't think it exists. The thing that I'm thinking of, which is like, who's helping the worker? Like, oh, that's like the only job of the company. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
We're not a conference. We're not a headhunter. We're not making money in 10 other different ways. Like truly, like the goal of the business is to help people like find what works for them individually for their career. And that's what I was looking for, and I couldn't find it. And then I started to have dreams about it. And I think part of it is that I've switched careers many times and it doesn't scare me. And I kind of get a kick out of it. And I think it's sort of fun to do. But I know as I've done that many times, it scares a lot of people. Like when I tell them I first worked in fashion, I wanted to get into like, real estate or finance. People were like, how are you going to do that? And I was like, oh no, I'll figure it out. And a lot of people just can't handle that kind of change. And so what I started to realize is A, this doesn't really exist, what I'm thinking about. And B, maybe I have a superpower that a lot of people don't have, where I like really can like see the forest for the trees, like see how this could exist.
Yeah, and it's that A-type personality, huh?
What?
It's that A-type personality.
Yeah. And also like, I think what I didn't realize was, is there a real deep value for me, right? That like, everyone should be able to find what makes their heart sing, like that should be available. And it made me kind of quite mad actually, just thinking like, that's amazing. Like there are no resources. If but not just manufacturing, like any career, or like you change what's interesting to you. I mean, It's just like millions of people. And so that's what I started working on. But the thing is, I'm not a big entrepreneur, like tech person. So it took me a while to figure out what the business could really even be. So it was like starting with like a value system and trying to find a business. And initially it was a community of people who were in the middle of career change. And it was going to be like kumbaya and inexpensive, and we'd help each other. And then I realized, like, oh my goodness, I had to like curate content. I'm not a coach by training. I was in finance for a long time. And like, I had to like learn all this stuff. And I was like, oh my God, is this even good? I don't know. And I have a platform, by the way. And so then I thought, well, you know what we should really do is these people really, when they're switching careers, they need a coach. And for a split second, I thought to myself, oh, well, maybe I become a coach. And like, that's the way I do this. And then I realized, no, I'm really interested in much more like the scaffolding and like the scalability of a thing.
Right.
And so I had this idea of getting like 10 stay-at-home. I said this other group of people who have career change often, which is stay-at-home moms. So a not well-known fact is that every year, 4 million women return to full-time and part-time work when their youngest kid goes to full-time school.
Right.
There's a lot of details in that one, but basically it's just a huge change of like childcare to back to work is a common transition. 4 million a year. So I had this in mind. Well, what if we get like 10 moms? They can stay in their house via Zoom. We'll get them a coach. They split the coach's rate by 10, 10 women split the coach's rate by 10, making it a lot more affordable. And you can get a really good coach, right, when you split the rate. And so you don't have to pay a lot. And typically if you're at home, you don't have a lot of income to spend on coaching. So I thought it would be this great setup, and like they didn't have to go anywhere. They didn't have to get childcare, drive anywhere. They could just stay at home. And then for the coach, the benefit would be that same thing with that coach. That person didn't have to go anywhere. It's really just an hour of their time. They turn on their computer and then they go about their day.
Right.
So I pitched it to a coach, and the coach said, "Oh, I would do that in a heartbeat." And I thought, oh, coaches need leads. I never thought about it that way. Like they also have a business. Like coaches want to meet new people as well. And so I realized that really what works in terms of like my strengths, and also like with the business and like all the things that make sense to me, is turning it into a marketplace. So what it has become now is Terawatt is a marketplace where we recruit and vet coaches on behalf of the buyers, and then we help buyers put together a proposal and pick the best coach for their groups. And typically it's for employers. And so that's how it started. But basically, I think the key is just that like it was like a deep-seated value that I kind of didn't really think that much about until a few facts were presented that made me realize.
So, yeah, and you kind of touched on a little bit of what I was going to ask you next, because as I discussed with, many people that have been on the show, most businesses start up because they've identified a need or a problem that needs to be solved. And it seems like you did that. So with that in mind, like who is your niche client? Like who do you help the most?
Yeah. So, well, because it's a marketplace, we kind of help a lot of people. We have like three sort of stakeholders, but our customer is employers, and right now it's hospital or healthcare employers.
Okay.
So the way to think about it is we've got coaches who, a really good analogy, by the way, is Airbnb. So sometimes I say to people, we're like Airbnb, but for executive coaching. And so the reason it works for Airbnb is because coaches who've been developing their craft and their content for 10, 15, 20, 30 years are kind of like houses in that there's a market rate. And as you become more successful and more in demand, your rate rises, right? Or you might not be busy, so maybe you lower your rate. But the point is that there's a price, and each coach knows what their time is worth. And that's why it's similar to real estate, in that if you're going to a concert and you want to stay at an Airbnb, okay, like you can stay the next block over, but during that concert weekend, that might be kind of expensive. But if you are willing to walk 10 blocks, it's a lot more affordable. Or if you like join in with 10 of your friends, it's a lot more affordable than if you stay alone, so it's like all those kinds of dynamics, very similar. And so sometimes I just think it's helpful to mention that. So we have these coaches, we're like recruiting them and vetting them, and they're awesome. And these are people like the full gamut, like PhDs in psychology, MBAs from Harvard, professors of negotiation, all sorts of things. So it's not just executive coaches, but it's also people who just have expertise that sort of soft skills side. So that's the coaches. Then we are marketing to healthcare employers. So CFOs or COOs, anyone who is concerned about turnover or burnout in their population, because there's a lot of data about how coaching can reduce turnover and burnout. And then the employer buys the coaching on behalf of their employees.
Okay.
And when we say group, it can be any group. Like it could be an affinity group, Black women. It could be emerging leaders. It could be, I just want to learn about negotiation. People just raise their hand. I mean, there's so many different ways. It could be a team. It could be a leadership team, So when I say group, it just means like more than 4 people. And there's some way that they have identified a shared goal that they have. And then we match them to the appropriate coaches. And then based on pricing and everything else, they can choose, right? So we have almost 100 coaches right now. And if what someone's looking for we don't have, we send out the bat signal.
Right.
And we find, the other coaches who do that. And
Right.
the goal really is to make everyone feel like they're getting a lot out of it. So we're just really kind of like a matchmaker is another way to think about it.
Okay. So when you came up with the idea and or concept for Terawatt, share with our listeners what you did to market yourself, get your name out there, and describe your value proposition, and also indicate what separates you from others that are in the space as well.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. And that's been like the whole journey of the business. I mean, but one thing that's really helpful, it's been really helpful to me in like differentiating or at least explaining our differentiation, because so much of this was like on its own. I sort of developed this with coaches. Actually, so one of my jokes is like, I'm the age where people become coaches. So I know a lot of coaches. Like
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. Like for 30 years, like I know people for ages and they're all becoming coaches. So it's like, great. And they're really smart people. And so I just sort of developed in line with them. So a little bit of the development was trying to find exactly what coaches wanted. So it was just on its own little bubble. We're on our own island for a while.
Right.
But then as I was looking about competitors, I realized like, wow, what we've come up with is so different from what's out there. And so that's been really important to explain to people, because right now, if I just say, oh, we're a coaching marketplace, you'd say, oh, there must be like 10 other companies like that. Well, no, there aren't, because the economics typically with large scale coaching organizations is that they're not a technical marketplace. They might call themselves a marketplace, but they're a services business, meaning they will tell the coaches their hourly rate. And usually it's about $35 or $50 an hour. And then they mark it up and then they make the spread. That's how their business works.
Right.
And oftentimes anyone who offers a subscription, that's a services business. That's not a marketplace, right? There's no subscriptions on Airbnb, right? Because there's so many different people, it would be impossible to manage a subscription. So that's really different. And what that means is we're kind of aligned with the coaches. So the main reason ultimately means that if you are an expert coach and every year your rate's going up or whatever, you're in high demand, you would never accept $35 or $50 an hour. And so what that really means is the people that are accepting the $35 to $50 an hour are maybe new coaches, or people don't have much of a network, or who knows what their reason is. But people who have their own business outside of Terawatt just do their own thing. Like they hire social media managers, or they speak at conferences, whatever their thing is, they're getting their word out there other ways, and they have a real business. So that's a big difference. The other one is that no one group is disadvantaged in our marketplace. Right. And so and that's really just, again, like a values thing for me, because I want to set it up so that we're all getting better and we're all, you know, growing and happy and like, learning, as opposed to like, well, this person, we're just going to keep their price really low so that like we can keep, it's a good deal for somebody. It's not about a good deal. Ultimately, it's a good deal because of the power of division and math, because we're dividing by the number of people. It's more affordable,
Right,
but
right.
we're not making it so that coaches aren't getting paid. Like they tell us their rate, and then the buyer chooses, like, is that too high for me or is that not? That's your choice. But really what we're trying to just do is organize awesome coaches who are from all over, all walks of life. Like, for instance, we don't have any we don't really have any like hard criteria for evaluating coaches, in that like the key criteria for them to be a Terawatt coach is that they really care about people, they have their own content, and they have experience and they make change in people's lives. And we spend a lot of time with them to make sure that's true. But like, we have plenty of coaches that didn't go to college. We have plenty of coaches that are just super talented that aren't ICF certified or whatever. We have plenty of coaches that are ICF certified. But the point is that we really just want talented people. It's not about check the box people.
Right, right. And, it's all about the value proposition as well at a certain price point. So you came up, you had the idea to launch Terawatt. Starting a business can be, at the very beginning and even sometimes throughout as you're trying to scale and grow, it can be capital intensive and it can be quite difficult to secure the financing you need to launch your dream. So how did you manage that early on?
Good question. Okay, that's actually the hardest part of the whole thing. I mean, in like the startup land, I would say that I bootstrapped this, but I hate that word because
Right.
I don't know how to code. So I self-financed.
Okay.
And I learned, and basically, from money that I had made on my other job, I used that to start this business just because I was such a believer. And what happened was, when this was first starting, there was much more venture capital in the land, and I had a few offers, and I thought, well, I don't want to take this money because I'm not really sure what I'm doing here. And if I take capital, then I kind of have a target on my back to like show growth.
Right, right. You have an obligation.
Yeah. And I was worried because I thought, well, let me just make sure I know what this is before I take capital, because I just didn't want to have someone like 2 years down the road say like, oh, great, have you gone viral yet? And I'll still be working on the business model.
Right.
And I wanted to just sort of like be what it is and not be under pressure. And so then what happened is, once I was like kind of ready to take venture capital, it kind of all disappeared. You know what I mean? There's much less venture capital out there.
Right.
And I started realizing I was actually trying to get a little bit of venture capital and reaching out to people. And it's just what do you call it? The milestones changed or whatever. Like, what mattered to people, earlier was different now. And
yeah, the guidelines changed.
Yeah, everything started changing, and it just became harder. And because I wasn't like an AI coder, it was like I wasn't super sexy. And so I felt like, I'd just rather spend more time on this business than like going after venture capitalists or any other kind of funding. By the way, there's like 1,001 competitions that pay you like no money, that also takes up a ton of your time. You could spend a ton of time doing that. So I just was like, you know what? I just want this to work. And maybe I just becomes like any like ordinary business where I put a lot of money into it, and I'm just going to do this till I die, and so I'm just going to work really hard to make it work. And so that's my story. And I wish that was like more like sexy, but basically, ended up being just self-funded.
Okay. So would you say that at that time that was in fact your biggest hurdle, or as you were trying to grow and scale the business, there were, some bigger hurdles that you had to overcome? And if you did have those, share with our viewers what you did to overcome those hurdles, because that can give, aspiring business owners or existing business owners, somewhat of a different approach to any hurdle that they may be encountering?
Yeah. Okay. There's so many hurdles. So that's one thing about startups is that there's kind of a joke that people say if they knew it would have been this hard, they wouldn't have done it. And
Right.
and you hear that a lot, and it's sort of true. But like it's so fun to start a business. So, but what I would just say is like everything is a hurdle because no one knows everything. So there's always stuff you don't know that it's really hard to figure out.
Right.
I probably had 2 or 3 different like people doing my website. I started with one guy, then I switched to another group, then I switched to another group. And then finally I got a co-founder CTO who is just really smart at the coding side. And now that's been a great addition for me. But I didn't want to have a co-founder who's just like me. I wanted somebody who just brought a completely different skill set. And so that was great. And so, by the way, actually, if anyone's looking for someone like who's complements them, I found him. We found each other on the Y Combinator matching. There's like a marketplace for matching founders for Y
Okay.
Combinator. Strong recommend. And like a lot of people are meeting. It's almost like Hinge or Match. I didn't do online dating, but it's like that kind of matching thing where
Right.
it's like really easy. And so I found him there, and he's awesome. What else was hard? I think just like, you just have to be comfortable with like, oh, there's going to always be a new skill set that you have to like get up to speed on. And you just
Right.
have to kind of say, well, what's the best way for me to do this? Like, do I learn it myself? Do I try to find someone on Upwork? Do I, how am I going to do this new skill set that's required? I mean, one of the crazy things is that you can spend unlimited amounts of money on messaging and copywriting.
Right.
And the weird part is I've done actually a lot recently on ChatGPT.
Yeah, it's becoming everyone's friend. It's becoming my friend too, so I get it.
And it's crazy because like you can iterate 1,000 times a day and then do it again tomorrow, and it doesn't cost you anything. Whereas if you did that with a person, you get a bill for like $5,000 the next week.
Right.
And so like the iterating on ChatGPT is really valuable. And I just like, for instance, like I've also changed my LinkedIn profile based on like ChatGPT feedback. Like I just say like, here's what I have for this. Like, here's what I want to say. Here's what I want to focus on. Can you suggest some things? And like, that's really helpful and valuable. So that's been great. I think now the big one that everyone should hear about is, everything's set up. Everything's clear, processes, everything, but the sales is now the hurdle. And so we are focusing on healthcare because turnover is a big problem in healthcare. Like the average turnover rate for hospitals and healthcare groups is like 20% of all their employees. And what's wild and not well known is that, group coaching and group learning is a way to reduce turnover. And we have data about it. And there's a ton of research about also the impact of professional development on burnout for nurses. And there's just a ton of data. And there's this whole area of human capital research that's intertwined with like accounting and HR. And it's like not that well known. And it's kind of mathy, sort of, which I think is kind of fun about it because it quantifies a lot of what people see as like a woo-woo coaching kind of thing.
Right. And
so that to me is really exciting. And so conveying that to people is a little bit hard, but my strategies, I will tell your listeners. So this is what, if you have a business where I think you're doing a lot of like teaching or education, we're trying to do a lot of speaking. So speaking on podcasts, speaking at giving presentations to associations, finding people that are interested in learning, writing articles. We've been doing a lot of that. And really, I just think, and now I'm doing also a lot of one-to-one networking to try to get like warm introductions. And I think, and again, it depends on what your business model is, but because we're B2B, those kinds of introductions are really valuable. And that might be different if you're like more of a B2C, like, business to consumer, where you're maybe more on Instagram and you're coming up with ways to like engage an audience.
That's wonderful. And that's great information and advice that you shared with us. I want to thank you for that. So you've been, Terawatt has been in existence for 9 years now?
Well, yeah, but what's so crazy is that like it's just like it's like what is it? It was like a larva, and 2016 was like the twinkle in my eye. Then for a while it was like a
Right.
larva, and now I say it's like a 3-year-old. It can't live on its own, but it breathes on its own. You know what I mean? So we're
Right.
still kind of growing it. So, but in its current iteration, I'd say it's like 2 or 3 years old.
Okay. So what's been, when you look back, the challenges, the hurdles, launching it, the learning curve, what would you say is your absolute proudest moment or biggest achievement thus far?
Ooh,
Well, I kind of touched a nerve there, didn't
good
I?
question. I don't think about that very often. My proudest moment, I have to say, I get so proud of myself and happy when people who I don't know reach out to me, like coaches, and say they want to join.
That's
That makes me
wonderful.
really happy because I don't even know how they're finding. You know what I mean? Like that's the fun part of having a business is you don't even know how people found you. I mean, of course, I could ask them all this stuff, but like it's more just that that's what I want, right? I want this to be something in the mix in the universe where it's helping people and it makes sense to people and they find it attractive. And it feels to me like it's starting to grow and be independent. And that's kind of what I want it to be, where, I don't want to always be like making it breathe. I would say that. I don't know. It's a great question. I'm going to keep thinking about that one because maybe there's another one. I don't know.
Well, and that kind of leads into my next question. Where do you, in your mind's eye, see the business in the next 2 years?
Yeah. So we are doing a lot of speaking at conferences. And so my hope is that I'm able to really connect and collaborate with a lot of like deep thinkers in human capital and HR and accounting and like CFOs at hospitals and really like become a trusted resource for people who don't realize this is a solution for like a massive problem. And so I'm just hoping we're speaking at a lot more conferences. There's a lot more like rinse and repeat. Like right now, it's very like new. Like this conference thing, it takes like almost like a year, right? Because you like submit the idea for a paper, then it's like 6 months later you present it, but then you have to also be on like the radar to know they're asking for proposals and all this stuff. But I think a lot more referrals. But really, what I want to do is just be helping people reduce their turnover. So in 2 years, I can say, oh my God, look at that. Over the course of the year, like we reduced your turnover by 2 or 3% just last year. And like, how much money did you save? $5 million. I mean, like it's crazy. These numbers are crazy, by the way, like the cost of turnover at large companies. And that's what I want is to like be in a position where I just have like a ton of awesome case studies that I can talk about and different things
Right.
that we're able to do. And just a lot more examples. I mean, right now we have a handful and they're awesome. And I know there's so much more cool stuff.
Right. So if there's one thing, and here's a question that you might get excited about, or at least cause you to think, if there's one thing that if given the opportunity, say for example, you have the proper resources and support in place to take yourself to the next level, one thing that you can change about your business immediately, like say tomorrow, what would that be?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think really it's making all the stuff we do a lot more automated. Like right now we say it's very like white glove.
Okay.
And and we do that for a number of reasons. And one is like we want the information, we want to be part of these conversations. But I think that the thing that I really want it to be is like I want you to be able to go to the website and hire these coaches and do all sorts of super cool stuff on your own. That would be awesome. We're also going to be setting up like an internal marketplace so we can recommend videographers or photographers to coaches so they can beef up their profile on our site, and then also they can use it in all of their media. And so those two things I think would be like the tomorrow thing. And it's not super hard. It's just, resources and a little bit of energy. But that's the kind of like definitely the next plateau.
Yeah, well, Francie, I got to tell you, it's been great learning about Terawatt and the birth of Terawatt and what it's grown to become. For those listeners that would love to follow you, how could they do so? How could they connect?
Oh, well, we're just most active on LinkedIn. And so I think it's like Terawatt groups or something like that on LinkedIn. And I'm on LinkedIn, Francie Jain, and our website is terawatt.co, no M, C-O.
Got it.
Terawatt.com is for sale for $1 million if you'd like to buy it.
There's a little plug there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wish I owned that. Unfortunately, I do not own that one. The guy keeps raising the price, who owns it. But yeah, and I'd love to chat forever. And it's funny, I just realized, I was just realizing on my website, the newsletter link to sign up is not there anymore. So I got to add it back in. So LinkedIn is definitely the better spot for right now until we add that back in. But, any way that you want to get in touch with me that's Terawatt affiliated, I'll probably see the information.
Well, Francie, thank you once again for joining us and sharing your wonderful story. To our listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode and you've enjoyed Francie, excuse me, and her story, I don't know where I get that from, but don't mind me.
Worry.
I swam to this country. It takes me a while to figure things out. But if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and tune in for more inspiring business spotlights. Until next time, I'm again your host, Irv Cruz, and we'll see you on the next Credit Bank Small Business Spotlight. Francie, we thank you once again, and we wish you all the success that you can
Thank you so much, Irv. Thank you so much. It was a real pleasure.
Pleasure was all mine.
If you enjoyed this video, click here to watch another exciting episode.